Welcome back to the channel. I've got a review for a documentary, and it's not horror. This is just such a great documentary, I thought I had to talk about it, and that is Facing Ali, 2009, directed by Pete McCormick, who's done a number of documentaries. Uganda Rising is another one he did. This is based on a book by Stephen Blunt, I believe, and it's about Ali's career, as if we need another film about Ali's career, Muhammad Ali. But this is a little different because this is looking at Ali's career from the perspective of his opponents, and it interviews 10 of his opponents, and it does a great job of really capturing another side of Ali and what it was like to fight Ali, starting with Henry Cooper. Henry Cooper from the mid 60s fought Ali at Wimbledon, Wembley Stadium, not Wimbledon, Wembley Stadium, and knocked Ali to the ground with his left hook, sweeping left hook. Great stories, and I just loved this film. It covers George Chuvalo, who was back in the 60s. Chuvalo fought Ali twice, both before and after the whole Vietnam thing, when Ali was protesting Vietnam and ended up not being stripped of his title, not being able to fight. Ali fought Chuvalo in Canada, and it was a brutal 15-round fight. I've watched all of Ali's fights over time, and they're just, the fact that he says he's the greatest, this is the one case I think where it's true. Ali was the greatest heavyweight of all time. He was basically Sugar Ray Robinson, just, heavier. I mean, great footwork, great technician. He could take a punch too. I mean, at the end of the day, whether it was Parkinson's or whatever that kind of got him, the way he was in the final years of his life, all those punches he took couldn't have helped. But so you got George Chuvalo. I wish they'd have gotten Patterson. I guess they couldn't have. This was done in 2009, so obviously they couldn't have done that. But they got Henry Cooper, who also fought Ali twice. Cooper knocked him to the ground. Ali got up and, of course, finished him off, cut him up, just sliced him up with jabs. And then Ali fought Cooper again and won. Same kind of way. Just poor Henry just had he had a problem with bleeding. He was a heavy bleeder, but he packed a left hook that could wallop you if you weren't watching it. Chuvalo was the most interesting because he was the most lucid of all the fighters, and he told some great stories in this thing. Then, of course, you've got Joe Frazier. How can you not have Joe Frazier in this? The three greatest fights of all time: Ali, Frazier, 1, 2, and 3, Thriller in Manila. You've got George Foreman talking about Ali. You've got Leon Spinks. Of course, Leon Spinks just recently passed away, but he beat Ali in '78 in a huge upset. You got Kenny Norton, who a lot of people would argue that Kenny Norton, really, those three fights with Kenny Norton in the '70s, you could argue that Ali didn't win any of them. He certainly didn't win the first one. That's the one where Ali supposedly got his jaw broken either in the first couple rounds or in the last round, depending on who you want to believe. You've got, of course, Foreman, Frazier, Kenny Norton, Leon Spinks, Ernie Terrell. Now, Ernie Terrell was a fighter, a 6'6" fighter back in the 60s that Ali fought in Houston, and Terrell refused to call him by his new name, Muhammad Ali, and called it, he was calling him by his birth name, Cassius Clay, and that's the famous or infamous "What's My Name" fight, where Ali kind of tortured Terrell for 15 rounds and screaming at him, "What's my name?" this is a great and unique way to tell the Ali story without rehashing a lot of what we already know about Ali. Uh, Ernie Shavers is in this, and of course Ernie Shavers was one of the hardest punchers of all time, along with Foreman and Sonny Liston, and Shavers probably came the closest to knocking out Ali, even though he didn't knock him to the ground like Cooper did off his feet. Shavers almost had him in his bout in New York. So just great stuff. I mean, it's a fascinating 90 minutes. I highly recommend it, certainly for boxing fans or historians. I mean, it's definitely the way to go. I got to mention Ron Lyle. Ron Lyle, who gave Ali and George Foreman one of the greatest fights of all time. I think it was in '75. Was Ron Lyle versus George Foreman. They must have knocked each other down 15 times. Ron Lyle was a tough dude, very tough dude. I was thinking they would have Chuck Wepner interviewed on this, but they didn't. But I mean, all the others are just fantastic, each and every one of them, and it's a great and unique way to tell the Ali story and his career without just kind of rehashing already plowed ground. So there are some special features on this. I looked it up on Amazon for the Blu-ray. I bought this back well over 10 years ago, the DVD. I don't think there's a Blu-ray of this. I couldn't find it. You can watch it on Prime if you want to. It does have some special features, some behind the scenes, and an interview with Pete McCormick. Which was that was very interesting. Very very short, like eight minutes each. But yeah, if you want to take a break from horror or movies in general, and you want to watch a great documentary, check out Facing Ali. And even if you're not a boxing fan, this doesn't really focus on the fights themselves. This is much more of the interpersonal between the fighters. So it's much more of a dramatic discussion about Ali the man and these individual fighters, how they felt about Ali before and after the fight, those type of things. So it's not really a blow by blow ring rehash of boxing. If you don't like boxing, you're not really going to be watching a boxing movie or drama or documentary. This is something very different. So highly recommended. I give this a 9 out of 10. All right, I'll be back with a Blu-ray update shortly. Appreciate you watching.